I've cancelled all your cards. My husband's voice was light, almost cheerful, as if he were announcing he'd ordered takeout. He tossed a small, glittering pile of cut-up plastic onto the kitchen's cold, granite island. My credit cards. My debit card. Even the department store card I used to buy our son's shoes. You're so broke now, he laughed, you'll have to ask me even for tampon money. Before we get into this ultimate story of power and revenge, if you believe in the strength of the person everyone underestimates, I need you to hit that subscribe button. We tell stories for the silent ones, the ones who are biding their time. And trust me, you want to be here for this. Now, let's get into the story. He looked to his mother for approval. My mother-in-law, Senator Rosalind Hayes, was sitting at the head of the table, sipping her morning tea. She did not look at me. She simply looked at her son, Damon Hayes, and a small, cruel smirk touched her lips. Hunger makes women behave fast, Damon, she said, her voice as crisp and cold as a new dollar bill. It is a lesson she needs to learn. This was the hook. The moment the veiled, daily humiliations became a full-blown declaration of war. My name is Lena Hayes. I am 38 years old. To them, I am a ghost. I am the quiet wife, the woman from a common family who, by some miracle, had married into the Hayes political dynasty. I am the woman who stays home, raises our brilliant son, Leo, and who, they believe, has no money, no power, and no future beyond what they allow me to have. My husband, Damon, is the financial genius son of the senator, a consultant who lives off his mother's name, his family's power, and, though he doesn't know it, my silence. And I am the woman he had just financially executed. What are you talking about? I whispered, my voice trembling, playing the part they had written for me. The copay for Leo's allergy appointment. Oh, Lena, Damon sighed, his tone full of that devastating, condescending pity. Are you really that financially illiterate? Your name isn't on the real accounts. It's a family trust. My trust. And I'm just cleaning up. Protecting the assets. From you. But I don't have anything, I stammered, the tears welling up on cue. How will I buy groceries? You'll ask me, he said simply. You'll come to me, you'll show me the list, and I will give you an allowance. Just like a child. Because that's what you are. A child I have to manage. I looked at Senator Hayes. Her face was a mask of cold satisfaction. This was their counterattack. But what was I attacking? I knew, of course. It was the divorce settlement. A document their lawyers had drafted last week. A thick, 100-page book of legalese that essentially had me signing away any future claim on the Hayes dynasty, on their homes, their stocks, their legacy. It was a document that would, in effect, erase me from the family line. It was a document that also included an ironclad, career-ending non-disclosure agreement. And I had refused to sign it. Damon was leaving me. He had found someone new, a 25-year-old political advisor named Talia, who was, as his mother had so delicately put it, more appropriate for the brand. They weren't just asking for a divorce. They were asking me to disappear for a laughably small, one-time payment. Now, they were showing me the alternative. Sign, or starve. Please, I begged, the tears now real, hot, and humiliating. Please, Damon, don't do this. I'll think about the papers. I'll think fast, he said. He picked up his briefcase. My patience is gone. You have 24 hours to sign, or I'm filing for full custody. I'll tell the judge you're unstable. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, or you? He kissed his mother on the cheek. He walked out of the door. He had just, with surgical precision, cut every one of my legs out from under me. I was left alone in the vast, silent kitchen with the matriarch. Senator Rosalind Hayes finally looked at me, her eyes as dead and cold as a winter sky. You are a foolish, common girl, Lena, she whispered. You thought you had a choice. You have nothing. You are nothing. You are a bloodsucker my son made the mistake of marrying. Now, you will learn your place. Or you will be removed. Hunger is a wonderful teacher. She stood, smoothed her silk blouse, and left me there, a broken, weeping, broke woman, surrounded by the glittering fragments of my cancelled life. I cried for exactly 10 minutes. Then, I stood up. I wiped my face. I made myself a cup of tea. And I made a phone call. This was my counterattack. The beautiful, terrible, hilarious thing was this: the card cutting, the hunger tactic. It wasn't their first move. It was their reaction. They just didn't know it yet. I am not the woman they think I am. I am not broke. They see Lena Hayes, the quiet, common wife. They have no idea who I am. In the highest, most secretive circles of political and corporate power, I am known by another name. I am Astra. I am the most sought after, and most expensive, ghostwriter in the world. My little writing hobby, as Damon called it, was a lie. It was a cover for my real business. For 15 years, I have been the invisible voice behind the throne. I have written the best-selling autobiographies of 5 different Fortune 500 CEOs. I have crafted the impassioned speeches of 3 presidents. And for the last 10 years, I have been the sole architect of Senator Rosalind Hayes's entire public persona. Her fiery, unscripted floor speeches? I wrote them. Her deeply personal, best-selling memoir, The Iron Matriarch? I wrote every single word. Her entire legacy was a fraud. And I was the fraudster. My common family, the one she so despised, was just a quiet, academic family in Chicago. But the fortune I had built, the one I'd earned from being the most powerful, invisible voice in the country, was vast. It was all held in a series of untraceable, international accounts under my corporate shell, Astra Strategic Communications. They thought they had just cut off my $500 a week grocery money. They had no idea I was sitting on a liquid, 8-figure fortune. The NDA they were trying to force on me wasn't just to silence a bitter ex-wife. It was to ensure their greatest secret, that the Iron Matriarch was a hollow shell, a puppet whose strings I pulled, was never, ever revealed. And an hour ago, I had already cut the strings. I had sat in my study, the one they thought was for scrapbooking, and I had made a call to my lawyer, Fiona Price. Fiona, I'd said, it's Astra. They're moving on me. Execute Project Spotlight. Are you sure, Lena? They're trying to take my son. Burn them to the ground. Project Spotlight was simple. It was an encrypted file, sent from an anonymous server to the one man Rosalind feared more than God, Ben Carter, the top investigative journalist at the Washington Post. The file contained everything. The original, handwritten drafts of the Iron Matriarch, in my handwriting. The audio files of my coaching sessions with Rosalind, where I am literally teaching her how to pronounce the words in her own emotional speeches. The metadata. The invoices. The proof. That was an hour ago. I sat in the kitchen, sipping my tea. I was broke. I was hungry. And I was waiting. At 10:15 a.m., the house phone rang. The one that was a direct, private line to Senator Hayes's personal office. I knew she was in her study, just down the hall. I let it ring twice. Then, I picked up the extension, my hand over the receiver. This is Senator Hayes. Rosalind's voice was sharp. Senator, a man's voice, curt and terrified. It was her chief of staff. We have a 5-alarm fire. A catastrophe. Ben Carter from the Post just called. He has drafts. Of your book. He has audio. He's claiming you didn't write any of it. He's asking who Astra is. He's asking if it's your son's wife. The silence on the line was a black hole. That is a lie, Rosalind stammered. A political hit job. He's got the files, Senator, the man shrieked, his professionalism gone. I'm looking at them. He sent me the link. This is not a smear. This is a manuscript. He has the original, with your, our, edits, next to the final version. He has recordings of you. He's running the story in 2 hours. The Post is about to accuse you of being the single greatest fraud in American politics. The line clicked. I heard a sound I had never heard before. A strangled, high-pitched gasp, like a dying animal. An hour later, the bank, or in this case, her chief of staff, had called. And Senator Rosalind Hayes's face, when she stumbled out of her study, her eyes wide and unfocused, her hand shaking, was not pale. It was the color of ash. It was the face of a woman who had just watched her entire legacy, her iron will, evaporate. Senator Rosalind Hayes did not scream. She did not faint. She simply stood in the middle of her opulent study, her hand still on the phone, and for the first time in her life, she looked her age. She looked small. I watched her from the hallway, a ghost in my own home, holding a dust rag I had no intention of using. This was my stay and investigate phase, and my role was the common, invisible wife, a role they had so carefully trained me for. She made 2 more calls. Her voice was no longer the icy command of a matriarch, it was the thin, cracking plea of a debtor. Ambassador, I need a favor. A long pause. What do you mean, bad optics? We have been friends for 30 years. The line clicked. Her hands were shaking. She tried another number. Director General, it's Rosalind. I need to call in the marker you owe me. What? An anonymous source? What are you talking about? Who is Astra? She was trapped. My team, Project Spotlight, had not just leaked the files. They had simultaneously sent alerts to every major donor and political ally, informing them that a career-ending story was about to break. The Iron Matriarch was suddenly radioactive. The powerful friends she had cultivated for decades were rats fleeing a ship that they didn't even know was sinking. The front door slammed open. It was my husband, Damon. He wasn't whistling. He wasn't the arrogant CEO's son. He was a man running from a fire. He sprinted past me in the hall as if I were a piece of furniture, his face ashen, his suit jacket flapping. Mother, he yelled, bursting into the study. The Post. They're running a story. They're saying your book, it's a fraud. That you're a fraud. They're asking who Astra is. What is going on? Rosalind looked up at her son, her face a mask of gray terror. It's a lie. A political hit job. We just need to kill the story. Call the bank. We need to liquidate the emergency fund. Now. We'll buy the source. We'll buy the paper. We need $10 million. Damon's voice, which had been loud and panicked, suddenly became a small, thin, reedy whisper. I can't. What do you mean, you can't? Rosalind snapped, her old fire returning. You're the financial genius. You manage the family trust. Get the money. I can't, he roared, his voice cracking. It's not there. It's gone. This was it. The hidden secret suspense that I, and only I, had been piecing together for a year. What do you mean, gone? Rosalind whispered. I reallocated it, Damon babbled, his hands shaking. It was a sure thing, Mother. A high-yield offshore tech fund. I was doubling our assets. I was trying to impress you. It collapsed. Last week. It's all gone. Every last cent. The silence in the room was absolute. I, the financially illiterate wife, had known this. My hobby wasn't just ghostwriting. It was research. I had seen the wire transfers. I had tracked his sure thing fund. It wasn't a tech fund. It was a high-risk, borderline illegal hedge fund run by a 22-year-old in the Cayman Islands. My genius husband was a common, catastrophic gambler. And he had just bankrupted the Hayes dynasty. This was why they needed me to sign the NDA. This was why they were trying to take my son. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a frame-up. They were planning to pin the entire financial collapse on me. They would say the common, stupid wife had meddled, had gotten access, had made the bad investments. His cancelled cards act wasn't just cruelty, it was him building a case that I was financially unstable, erratic, unwell. They weren't just trying to throw me out. They were trying to replace me. In a prison cell. You failure, Rosalind hissed, her voice trembling with a rage so profound it was terrifying. You ruined us. You ruined me. I can fix it, he pleaded. I need more collateral. I need Lena's signature. If we can just get her to sign that NDA, if we can just get her father's assets, we can stop the bleeding. You think her father's assets can stop this? Rosalind screamed. She grabbed her phone and shoved it in his face. The Washington Post homepage. The story was live. The Iron Matriarch, a decade of deceit. Senator Hayes' career built on ghostwriters' lies. It was a masterpiece. Ben Carter had used everything. The audio files. The invoices. The handwritten drafts. My entire Astor file. It wasn't just an accusation. It was a conviction. Rosalind Hayes was finished. Her political career was over. Her legacy was a fraud. And in that moment, as his mother's world was ending, Damon's world ended, too. His phone, sitting on the desk, began to buzz. And buzz. And buzz. It wasn't the press. It was his other investors. The unofficial ones. The dangerous, silent partners he had promised to double their money. I knew, because I was the one who had anonymously tipped them off. Project Spotlight wasn't just for the Post. It was for everyone. Damon looked at the phone, his face white with a new, colder terror. He had gambled his mother's money. But he had stolen theirs. And they were not bankers. They did not send polite letters. The two of them, the dynasty, were trapped. Ruined. In the span of 1 hour, they had lost their power, their money, and their future. And then, finally, Rosalind looked up. Her eyes, hollow with defeat, met mine in the hallway. I was still standing there, holding the dust rag. The common girl. The leech. The child who needed an allowance. Her mind, a sharp political tool, finally processed the impossible. The timing. The precision. The simultaneous, two-front war. The political hit job that had just ended her career. The bad investment that had just ended her son's life. And the woman who had been living in her house for a decade, writing her thoughts, managing her brand, and listening. Astra, she whispered. It wasn't a name. It was a realization. You. Damon heard her. He turned, his eyes wide. He looked at me, the stupid wife. He looked at the cancelled cards on the floor. He looked at the terror in his mother's face. He finally, truly, saw me. You, he choked out. Your hobby. Your writing. I dropped the dust rag. I let the mask of the quiet wife fall from my face. Yes, I said. My voice was not a whisper. It was the voice of Astra. The voice of a CEO. The voice of a woman who had just taken back her life. You tried to take my son, I said, my voice cold and clear, echoing in the hall. You tried to starve me. You tried to frame me. I stepped into the doorway, into the room of my ruined masters. You called me a child, Damon. You thought I was financially illiterate. I looked at the woman who had called me nothing. You thought I was common, Rosalind. I smiled. A cold, quiet, powerful smile. You were right about one thing, Senator. Hunger does make women behave fast. You forgot to ask, who, exactly, was hungry. The study was a tomb. The only sounds were the frantic, muffled buzzing of Damon's phone on the desk, his criminal investors, calling to collect, and the sharp, ragged breathing of his mother. You bitch, Rosalind hissed, her stateswoman mask crumbling to reveal the vicious, cornered animal beneath. You will be sued. You'll be in prison for libel. For violating our trust. For breaking your NDA. What NDA, Rosalind? I asked calmly, stepping fully into the room. The one you tried to starve me into signing? The one I refused? I never signed it. I was never your employee. I was your victim. And my work as Astor was always my own. I looked at Damon. He was a complete wreck, his face buried in his hands. Lena, please, he begged, his voice a pathetic whine. You have to help me. They will kill me. The investors, you don't know who they are. You have money. You're Astra. You have to pay them. You're my wife. This was it. The climax. The private victory. I was your wife, Damon, I said, my voice cutting through his sobs. I was the wife whose cards you cancelled. The wife you were going to frame for your own crimes. The wife you were going to leave with nothing but a tampon allowance. I walked over to the desk. I looked at the cut-up, glittering pile of plastic he had thrown on the kitchen island. I picked up a piece. You told me I'd have to beg you for tampon money, I whispered, holding the piece up to the light. It seems, Damon, that you're the one who's going to have to beg. My legacy. Rosalind whispered, staring at the Washington Post story on her phone. It's all gone. Everything I built. You built nothing, I said, my voice final. You were an empty, iron shell, and I was the voice inside. Now, the voice is leaving. And you're just empty. I turned to leave. I had one more asset to secure. I'm going to pack a bag for my son, Leo, I announced. And then we are walking out of this house. You can't take my son. Damon shrieked, lurching to his feet. Your son? I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. You were going to use him as a pawn. You were going to trade him for my signature. You have no claim on him. You have no home. You have no money. You are a broke, disgraced gambler who is about to be arrested for fraud, or worse. I looked at him, my eyes like steel. And if either of you tries to stop me, if you so much as look at my son. I have a second file. The one I haven't sent to Ben Carter yet. Their heads snapped up. The Astor file was just my work, I said. The second file is yours, Damon. It's the file on your offshore investors. The one with the bank codes, the names, the wire transfers. The one that proves you, Senator, knowingly benefited from your son's criminal enterprise to fund your campaigns. I'm sure the SEC and the FBI would be just as interested in that as the Post was in mine. Don't test me. Checkmate. They were ruined. And now, they were silent. I walked upstairs. I packed Leo's bag. He was at a playdate, a sleepover I had arranged that morning with the one real friend I had. I walked back down, my son's little Spider-Man suitcase in one hand, my own go-bag in the other. I walked past the two of them, still frozen in their study, a tomb of their own making. I did not look back. I got in my car, drove to my friend's house, picked up my son, and drove to the private airfield where Fiona's jet was waiting. The resolution was absolute. The fall of the Hayes dynasty was immediate and total. Senator Rosalind Hayes resigned in disgrace by the end of the day, a national laughingstock, her iron matriarch legacy shattered, revealed as nothing but the stolen words of the common girl she despised. Damon Hayes was not so lucky. The unofficial investors he had stolen from were not as forgiving as the press. He was arrested 2 days later, not for his fraud against them, they preferred to stay in the shadows, but for the original fraud, the one that had bankrupted his mother's trust. He was a high-profile, undefended, and penniless target. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, a place where, I assume, he has to beg for everything. My legacy was just beginning. I was Astra. The ghost. The hidden voice. Not anymore. I took my son, my freedom, and my fortune, and I built my own house. I wrote my own book. It was not a memoir about a bitter divorce. It was called The Ghost in the Room, How the Voices of the Unseen Shape the World. It was an instant, international bestseller. My transformation was complete. I was no longer a ghostwriter. I was just a writer. My own name. My own voice. I used the profits from my book and the Astor fortune to establish the Astor Foundation for Voiceless Women. We are a non-profit that provides legal aid, financial counsel, and, most importantly, a platform for women who are being silenced, erased, or financially abused by powerful partners. We fund the journalists, we hire the PIS, and we give a voice back to the ghosts. I found my peace, not in a quiet room, but in a public forum. I stood on a stage, not as a senator, but as me, Lena Hayes, giving the keynote speech at my foundation's first gala. They called me common, I said to the crowd. They called me a child. They tried to starve me. They tried to erase me. They forgot that the quiet person in the room isn't invisible. She's just listening. She's learning. And she is the one you should be the most afraid of. What this story teaches us is to never, ever mistake silence for weakness. The person you think you can manage might just be the one who owns the entire game. If you believe in the power of finding your voice, hit that like button. And subscribe to this channel for more stories where the quiet one finally, and gloriously, gets the last word. We'll see you in the next one.